Hello everyone. In this video we are going to do a close reading of the reconstructed ending of Plautus's comedy The Pot of Gold. Before going to the reconstructed ending and its textual analysis, we must remind what happened so far. A man called Euclio has found in his own house a pot containing gold coins and gold. This pot had been buried under the hearth in the central hall of the house by Euclio's grandfather, and Euclio, having somehow come to know of it, has dug it out. From a poor man he has now become a very rich man, but he does not tell anybody about his newfound wealth and continues to behave like a poor man. His whole attention is now focused upon the pot of gold. He is all the time feeling worried about its safety. Having buried it again in his house, he keeps repeatedly taking it out to make sure that nobody has stolen it and that it is still intact. The precautions which he takes for its safety and the anxiety which he experiences in this connection make him a ridiculous figure in our eyes. He becomes even more ridiculous when we learn that in addition to being an avaricious man, he is also a great miser. His miserliness goes so far that he would not like to spend any money at all on the marriage of his young daughter, that he agrees to give her in marriage to an elderly man called Megadorus on the condition that Megadorus would ask for no dowry. However, Euclio does not know that 9 months ago his daughter had been seduced by a young fellow of the name of Lyconides and had become pregnant too. The girl's pregnancy has been kept close-guarded secret by the girl herself and by Euclio's housekeeper, who looks after the girl, as the girl's mother has long been dead. Lyconides, on learning that the girl is going to give birth to a child, decides to try to marry the girl so that the child should have a legal status and should not be regarded as an illegitimate one. Lyconides now prevails upon Megadorus through the influence of his mother, who is Megadorus's sister, to give up his intention to marry Euclio's daughter so that Megadorus's nephew may try to marry her. In the meanwhile, Euclio's pot of gold is stolen by a fellow who happens to be Lyconides's slave, though Euclio does not know who has stolen it. Euclio's condition at this time becomes pitiable because he is now feeling distraught on account of his loss of the pot of gold. He bewails and bemoans the loss, which spells his complete ruin. The manner in which he laments his loss amuses us more than it grieves us, because the pot of gold has become an obsession with him, and because he never wanted to spend even a bit of money for any purpose whatsoever. And in the connection of the reconstructed ending, we must remind the introductory note in the page 9 of The Pot of Gold, where translator E.F. Watling writes, "The end of Aulularia is, in fact, only known to us in outline from the arguments." What are these arguments? Those metrical summaries of the plot, usually in two alternative versions added to the plays by later Roman editors. This informs us that Euclio recovered his gold and made a present of it to his daughter and son-in-law. And note may also be taken of the one significant line among a few unplaceable fragments surviving from the missing last act. Nec noctu, nec diu quietus unquam iram nunc dormiam. It's a Latin phrase, Latin line, which means I have never had a moment's peace by day or night. Now I am going to sleep. From these clues, I have ventured to reconstruct a final scene, to indicate the probable denouement and to restore the completeness of this peculiarly enjoyable and genial comedy. The ending of the play is missing. Translators have been able to reconstruct the ending with hints in the prologue and contemporary summaries available. The acrostic argument, which prefaced some version of the play, along with a supplement written at the end of other versions, help translators to assume an ending in which Euclio gives away the gold as a dowry for his daughter. It is true that the one main event of the lost ending of the play is definitely known from the acrostic argument, but the question of the execution of the last act is not merely one of idle curiosity. In fact, as will be seen, the interpretation of the play as a whole depends a good deal on the understanding of the nature of its denouement and vice versa. Now let us go to the textual analysis of the reconstructed ending of Plautus's pot of gold. Lyconides says, "The wicked young devil, I am pretty sure he has stolen the gold, but he is so artful it's difficult to tell when he is lying and when he is telling the truth. And if has got it, how I am going to force him to give it up? He is a useful boy, and I should be sorry to have to inflict dire penalties upon him for this escapade. What is most important, however, is that I should be able to return the gold to Euclio. Perhaps he would then think better of me. Here comes my uncle. I must see if he can give me any good advice." Here, artful means clever or skillful. Inflict means to cause unpleasant or painful punishment. Dire penalties means extremely serious or severe punishment. And escapade means run away. So, this is a soliloquy. Here, Lyconides says that his slave must really have stolen the gold, but that the slave is such a cunning fellow that it is difficult to decide when he is telling a lie and when he is telling the truth. Even if he has got the gold, it would be difficult to get it from him, except by using strong measures against him. The slave is a useful fellow, says Lyconides in his soliloquy, and he would not therefore like to inflict any severe punishment upon him to recover the gold from him. However, it would be very advantageous to him if he can recover the gold from his slave and restore it to Euclio, because in that case Euclio would form a very good opinion about him and would agree to his marrying Euclio's daughter. Now Megadorus comes out of his house, speaking to his sister within. "Megadorus, all right, I don't need any more of your tutoring at the moment, thank you. Really, that sister of mine can be an intolerable nuisance. I might be a child of 6 the way she tries to guide and instruct me in every single thing I do. This morning she was on the point of forcing me to accept the wife she had been kind enough to select for me. And now, when I had countered the scheme by agreeing to marry the girl of my choice, she comes up with this story that my nephew is the girl's lover and earnestly desires to marry her. Well, let him. I dare say it will be all for the best, and I shall be well out of it. If I let my sister have her way for her son, perhaps she will let me to go my own way without interference in the future. Hello, Lyconides, my boy, what are you doing here? You don't look as happy as I should expect. Have you seen Euclid yet? Have you made your peace with the old man and obtained his consent to this marriage you have set your heart on? So here, tutoring means to instruct, intolerable means unbearable, nuisance means a person or thing causing inconvenience or annoyance. Scheme means make plans with intent to do something illegal or wrong. Hello is hello, greetings. Consent means giving permission. So Megadorus now comes out of his house, having been told by his sister the whole case of his nephew Lyconides, and after having agreed to give up his intention to marry Eucleus' daughter, in a soliloquy, Megadorus says that his sister, who is Eunomia, is an intolerable nuisance to him, because she always talks to him in the tone of a wise woman, and treats him as a child of 6. When she had met him in the morning, she had advised him to marry an elderly woman whom she had thought to be most suitable for him. But now, when he was going to marry Eucleus' daughter, she has urged him to give up his idea so that his nephew can marry her. Megadorus further says in his soliloquy that he is now glad to have given up his intention to marry Eucleus' daughter, and he hopes that in future his sister would not interfere with his life and would let him live according to his own ideas. So at this point, Megadorus catches sight of Lyconides, who has already been standing in the street after his slave had run away from him. Megadorus asks Lyconides what he is doing here and whether the old man, namely Euclid, has agreed to Lyconides' marriage with his daughter. Then Lyconides answers, "The old man, I am sorry to say, is more obstinate than ever." Megadorus says, "Did you confess your peccadillo?" "I did, and he refuses to forgive you. He is still angry with you." "He is angry with me for what I did, and he is angry with you for going back on your word." Megadorus, "I am surprised at that, since he did not seem any too willing for me to marry his daughter in the first place." Lyconides, "But most of all, he is angry and distracted almost to madness by the loss of a potful of gold, which it seems has been stolen from him today." Megadorus, that would account for his ill temper." "I have no doubt. But how did he come to have a potful of gold in his possession? This morning he was moaning to me about not being able to afford a dowry for his daughter. The old miser, he must have had money hidden away all the time. Well, serve him right if he has lost it. What do you think can have taken it?" Lyconides, "I know who has taken it. At least I think I do." "You do? Who?" Lyconides says, "My own slave, according to his own account, unless he is playing some silly trick with me." Then Megadorus says, "Well then, you know what to do. Punish him, strap him, torture him until he confesses the truth. And if he has got the money, make him give it up. Then you can give it back to Euclid. And I don't mind betting he will then be perfectly willing to give you his daughter in exchange." Here, obstinate means stubborn. Peccadillo means a minor fault or sin. Did not seem any too willing. The phrase means was not very eager or keen. Distracted means to divert attention. Mourning means complain or grumble. So Lyconides replies that the old man has proved to be a very obstinate kind of man. He further tells his uncle that Euclid is angry with him because he had seduced his daughter, and that Euclid is also angry with his uncle for having given up his intention to marry that girl. Megadorus feels surprised to know that Euclid is angry with him because he has given up his intention to marry Euclid's daughter. Euclid had agreed to this marriage after a good deal of hesitation and reluctance, and he should therefore have felt glad at Megadorus's giving up that intention. Lyconides also says that Euclid is particularly angry and sad because he has lost the pot of gold which he owned. Megadorus feels surprised to learn that Euclid was the owner of a pot of gold. Megadorus' surprise is due to the fact that Euclid had always called himself a poor man, and because only that very morning Euclid had expressed his inability to give any dowry to his daughter owing to his poverty. In view of Euclid's pretense of poverty, it is not a bad thing that Euclid has lost his wealth, says Megadorus. Lyconides then informs his uncle that Euclid's pot of gold had been stolen by his slave according to the slave's version, though Lyconides at the same time says that the slave's version may not also be true. Megadorus suggests that if Lyconides' slave has stolen the gold, Lyconides should get it from him by whatever means possible and should give it back to Euclid, who would then feel grateful to Lyconides and would accept him as his son-in-law. Then Lyconides says, "Yes, I believe he would, but the question is whether I can get hold of the money. That young slave of mine is a decent lad. I have never been a hard master, and he has always served me honestly and willingly. It would distress me terribly to have to use extreme measures against him." Megadorus: "Do you think he is anxious to obtain his freedom?" Lyconides: "What slave isn't?" "Exactly. So what I suggest is that you talk to your boy quietly, pretend you don't know or don't care whether he came by the money honestly or not, and give him the chance of purchasing his freedom for the price of that windfall that he has picked up. Don't you think he would agree?" Lyconides: "I am pretty sure he would. Yes, uncle, that's a brilliant idea. That's what I'll do. But one thing troubles me. Are you sure that it would be honest for me to connive at a theft, if theft it was, and allow my slave to reap the reward of freedom for his dishonest act?" Megadorus: "My boy, your scruples do you credit, but if you take my advice, you will trouble your headless. At this moment, about the niceties of strict morality, and more about what is to the best interest of all concerned. After all, what is money apart from what it can buy? And when was money more harmlessly employed than when used to purchase the happiness and contentment of at least 3 people at once? This money, wherever it came from, and we have no means of knowing whether or not it was honestly earned in the first place, will now, if you play your cards correctly, be the means of securing for you the bride of your choice, for your slave his freedom, and for Euclid the restoration of his peace of mind and recovery of his beloved treasure. Not to mention for me, I hope, a quiet life, a providential escape from a step which I might well have lived to regret. If a paltry pot of gold can achieve all these desirable ends, we are surely entitled to put it to work for us without inquiring too closely into its past history. Lyconides: I can find no fault with your reasoning, uncle. I will do as you advise. I will go and find my slave then and make him a fair offer of his freedom in exchange for the gold. Megadorus: be back here as soon as you can. Euclid's marriage feast must be pretty nearly cooked, if not spoiling by now. We don't want to waste a good dinner for lack of a bridegroom. Lyconides, I'll be back in no time. He goes off. Here, distress means anxiety or sorrow or pain. Windfall means money that is won or received unexpectedly. Connive means secretly allow something immoral, illegal, or harmful to occur. Scruples means hesitation. Niceties means accuracy or precision. Providential escape means get with the help of God. Bridegroom means a man about to wed. Lyconides says that somehow he does not feel inclined to beat or torture his slave in order to get the pot of gold from him, because the slave has always been faithful to him and because he does not wish to be cruel to the fellow. Megadorus says that Lyconides can offer freedom to his slave in exchange for the pot of gold. Lyconides asks if he should ignore the fact that the slave has got the pot of gold by dishonest means. He asks if it would be right for him to grant freedom to a slave in exchange for the pot of gold when the slave had acquired the pot of gold through a criminal act, namely stealing. Megadorus says that wealth or money is useful only so far as it enables a man to buy things. People buy things with their money so that they can lead comfortable and happy lives. Therefore, money is best spent when a man gets happiness and contentment in return for it. The pot of gold which the slave has stolen can now bring happiness and contentment to 3 persons simultaneously. If this pot of gold can be recovered from the slave would get freedom as a reward for giving it back to his owner. At the same time, Euclid would be happiest man when he gets back his pot of gold, and Lyconides would be a happy man to being accepted by Euclid as his son-in-law, because the pot of gold would be recovered from the slave through Lyconides' intervention and because of Euclid's gratitude towards Lyconides. Besides, the restoration of the pot of gold to Euclid would bring a certain degree of happiness to Megadorus also, because he would then be able to retreat from his promise to marry Euclid's daughter. Lyconides feels fully convinced by the arguments put forward by Megadorus, and he therefore makes up his mind to go and find his slave, to whom he would make an offer of freedom in exchange for the gold. Then Megadorus says, I think we are in sight of a happy solution of our problems. If I could just have a word with Euclid now, I dare say I could put him into a more amenable frame of mind and prepare him for a welcome surprise. Hello, what's going on there? Euclid is emerging from his house, shouting orders to the inmates. Euclid: and you can tell those cooks to pack up their traps and clear out, and take all the food back to where it came from. There is not going to be any dinner, there is not going to be any wedding. Megadorus: why, Euclid? Whatever is the matter? Has some misfortune occurred? Euclid: the misfortune occurred when I ran into you this morning. You and your family have made this day the blackest day of the whole of my life. Megadorus: you are not angry with me, I hope, for having waived my claim to your daughter's hand in favor of my nephew, who, it appears, has a prior right to it. Euclid: I'll see my daughter dead before I enter into any association whatever with you or your nephew or anyone of your kin. Megadorus: but he has made, I understand, a full confession and apology for his sins. You surely cannot be so inhuman as to deny your daughter the consolation of lawful marriage and her child the right of home life and parental care. Euclid: there are ways and means of disposing of the child. Moreover, as I told you this morning, I can't afford to give my daughter the dowry that she ought to have. Since this morning, let me tell you, thanks to your interference and the invasion of my house by a gang of thieves sent there by you in the guise of cooks and caterers, I have been robbed of my whole life's savings, all that I had put pie to protect me from starvation in my declining years. Megadorus, yes, I have heard about that, and I am sorry indeed to have heard of it. Euclid, you have heard about it? Then you know who stole it. It was one of your employees, was it? I thought as much. I am going down to town this minute to lodge an accusation against you, and by Hercules I will. Megadorus, not so fast, Euclid, please. I don't know who stole your money. If stolen it was, and it was certainly not done with any connivance from me. But would you be interested if I told you that I think there is a good chance of your getting your property back again very soon? Euclid, I don't know what to think. If you don't know who stole it, you evidently know where it is now. Megadorus, I can't exactly say that I know that much, but wait, and I think you will very soon hear something to your advantage. Euclid, well, I have heard nothing but bad news all this blessed day. It can do much more harm to wait a final blow. Here, amenable means controlled or manageable. Traps means personal belongings or baggage. Disposing means get rid of by throwing away. Invasion means capture. Declining years means diminishing in strength and quality over the years. Connivance means willingness to allow an immoral or illegal act. So here Megadorus gives a soliloquy. He says that a happy solution of the whole problem now seems to be in sight. He would now like to talk to Euclid in order to put him into a more accommodating frame of mind and to prepare him for a welcome surprise. Just then Euclid comes out of his house in a state of agitation and anger. Megadorus asks him what has gone wrong. Euclid replies that his misfortune has begun when he had met Megadorus that morning. Euclid further says that Megadorus and Megadorus's nephew have made this day the blackest day of his whole life. Megadorus asks if Euclid is angry with him because he has given up his claim to the hand of Euclid's daughter in marriage so that his nephew Lyconides may be able to marry her in view of his prior right to it. Euclid replies that he would rather see his daughter dead than enter into any kind of relationship with Megadorus or his nephew or any other relative of his. Megadorus points out that his nephew has made a full confession of his misdeed to Euclid, and he has also offered an apology to Euclid for his misdeed. Megadorus then urges Euclid not to be so inhuman as to deny to his daughter the consolation of a lawful marriage and not to deny to her child the right of a father's care. Euclid says that it was on account of Megadorus's folly that a gang of thieves had broken into his house under the guise of cooks and had robbed him of his life's savings. Euclid further says that one of those thieves had definitely stolen his pot of gold. Megadorus says that he had in no way been responsible for the theft of Euclid's pot of gold, and that in fact there is now a good chance of Euclid's getting his pot of gold back very soon. Congrio, the cook, comes out of the house. Congrio says, "Now, sir, we have done as you ordered, raked out the fires and taken up the pots and packed up the food, and we are ready to be off." Euclid, "Good. You can go as soon as you please." Congrio, "That will be when we have got our pay." Euclid, "Pay? I am not paying anybody for turning my house upside down, prying into my private business, and wasting my firewood. There's the man who hired you. Ask him for your pay." Megadorus, "You will get your pay all right, Congrio, but not before you have completed your day's work. We may need your services after all. You had better to go back into the house, have everything in readiness for a wedding dinner." Congrio, "Go away, stay here, cook the dinner, don't cook the dinner. Whose orders I am going to obey? I should like to know." Megadorus, Mine. I heard you, and I shall pay you. And with Euclid's permission, I want you to take charge of his kitchen until further orders. Congreve. I said it was a madhouse. I had been engaged to cook for. He goes in, grumbling. Euclid. Well, I don't know whether I am on my head or my heels. I am not allowed to give my orders in my own house now, it seems. Megadorus. Cheer up, Euclid. We shall soon have some good news for you. I think. Here comes my nephew. Lyconides arrives, carrying the pot under his cloak, the slave following him. Euclid. That impudent and shameless boy. He is the last person I used to see. Lyconides. I can quite understand that, sir. But though you may be unwilling to look at me, perhaps you can bring yourself to look at what I have with me. Euclid. His face averted. I don't wish to look at you or anything you have with you. Lyconides. Then I must leave it to my uncle to persuade you. He hands the pot to Megadorus, who approaches Euclid. Here, raked out means to clean or clear or scrap something. Turning my house upside down means putting in disorder or mix or messed up. Averted means turn away. Persuade means induce. So at this point, Congreve comes out of Euclid's house and demands payment for the work which he and his co-workers had done. Euclid says that the cooks have only wasted his firewood and have furthermore turned his house upside down. He refuses to make any payment to the persons who had only played havoc with his house. Megadorus tells Congreve that he was the man who had hired the cooks and the flute girls, and that therefore the entire payment was to be made by himself and not by Euclid. Congreve then withdraws, saying that he had been working in a madhouse. Congreve is actually feeling so angry with Euclid that he describes Euclid's house a house inhabited by mad people. Megadorus. I think we have something of yours here, Euclid. Euclid, turning unknowingly. What? What have you? Why, that's my pot of gold. Jupiter Almighty. Has it come back to me? Where did you get it? Who found it? Megadorus. My nephew is the person who can tell you that. Euclid to Lyconides. You? Is it you I have to thank for recovering my precious treasure? My dear boy, let me bless you. Lyconides. You may thank me for restoring it to you, but for having found it and having honestly desired me to return it to its owner, the credit is due to this young slave of mine, whom I have already rewarded by the gift of freedom. Euclid. Your slave? You don't say so? Well done, my boy. Come here and let me thank you and congratulate you on your freedom. You are well rewarded for an action that should be an example to all young men. Come here, boy. The slave comes sheepishly forward. Euclid only now recognizes him. Why, surely I have seen you before somewhere. Yes, wasn't it you I caught hanging around this shrine? Slave. Yes, sir, it was. Euclid. And I thought you had stolen the pot from where I left it? Slave. Yes, sir, you did. Euclid. But you had never touched it. Slave. No, sir, I hadn't. Euclid. And then later on you found it by chance somewhere else? Slave. Yes, sir, I found it by chance. Euclid. And thinking it might be mine, you told your master about it? Slave. Yes, sir, I told my master. Euclid. And asked him to return it to me? Slave. No, sir, he. Lyconides gives a warning cup. Yes, sir, I asked him to return it to you. Euclid. My goodness. Megadorus, if we all had slaves as honest as this lad, how easy life would be. I have good mind to hear, my boy. This is for you. He picks a small coin out of the pot and gives it to the slave. Slave. Thank you, sir. Lyconides, aside to Megadorus. Now, uncle, this is the time to praise him about my marriage. Megadorus. Yes, I will. Well, Euclid, we all rejoice at this happy conclusion of the affair. May we now return to the question of your daughter's marriage to my nephew, in the hope that your objections are now withdrawn. Euclio. What? Oh yes, by all means, let them get married. Let them get married. Lyconides. Oh, thank you, sir. Your generosity is more than I could ever. Sheepishly means in an embarrassed manner due to shame or lack of confidence. Then Lyconides is seen coming with his slave. Megadorus asks Euclio to cheer up because some good news is now expected. Seeing Lyconides, Euclio says that this young fellow is the last man whom he would like to see because he is an impudent and shameless fellow. Euclio describes Lyconides in this manner because Lyconides had himself told Euclio a little while ago that he had seduced Euclio's daughter. And because the fact of her seduction and her pregnancy had been confirmed by the girl herself and by Euclio's housekeeper, both of whom had kept the whole thing a secret from him all these months. Euclio's daughter has most probably already given birth to a child in the last couple of hours or so. We don't know. Lyconides now tries to appease Euclio's anger, but Euclio is at first relentless and stiff. Lyconides then urges his uncle Megadorus to speak to Euclio on his behalf. Lyconides also hands over the pot of gold to Megadorus, who now steps forward to speak to Euclio. Lyconides has succeeded in getting the pot of gold from his slave by giving him a promise that the slave would get his freedom in exchange for the gold. The slave has come with Lyconides to answer any questions that he may be asked by Euclio. Megadorus now informs Euclio that his pot of gold has been recovered and that he can have it. Euclio is simply amazed to see his pot of gold, and he feels delighted and thrilled when he gets it back. He then asks Lyconides if it was he who had recovered the precious treasure. Lyconides says that the pot of gold had been found by his slave, though it is he who has now brought it here to restore it to Euclio. Euclio looks at the slave and recognizes him as the fellow whom he had beaten earlier in the day on a charge of having committed a theft from inside the shrine. In reply to Euclio's questions, the slave says that he had found the pot of gold just by chance, and that having found it, he had told his master about it and had then asked his master to return it to its owner. Lyconides had tutored his slave to answer Euclio's question in such a way that Euclio should not think the slave to be a thief who had stolen his pot of gold. The slave had thus been prepared for his cross-examination by Euclio, and the slave is intelligent enough to answer all the questions in the manner in which Lyconides had instructed him to answer them. Euclio now says that if all the slave owners had such honest slaves as this fellow has proved to be, life would become a happy affair for them all. Euclio then takes out a small coin out of his pot of gold and gives it to the slave as a reward. Lyconides now whispers to his uncle to press Euclio to agree to his marrying Euclio's daughter. Accordingly, Megadorus suggests to Euclio that his daughter should be married to Lyconides. Euclio seems to be lost in his own thoughts, but he does reply to Megadorus' suggestion affirmatively. Let them get married. Let them get married by all means, says Euclio. And Lyconides then says to him, "Oh, thank you, sir." Euclio: "But first I must see this treasure safely put away. I am just wondering what is the best thing I can do with it. Here, you take it." Lyconides: "I take it?" Euclio: "Yes, take it, keep it, spend it on my daughter. Let her have it as a dowry. It's no use to me." Megadorus: "My dear friend, that is the most magnanimous of you." Euclio: "It's nothing of the sort. If that money can go where it will do some good, I shall be the happiest man in the world instead of the most miserable, which is what I have been ever since it came into my possession. Day or night, I have not had a moment's peace with that treasure on my mind. Every hour I have thought of some thief nosing around my house, some accident exposing the whereabouts of the hidden hoard. A dozen times a day I have tried to find new hiding places for it, dug pits in my garden, pulled up the hearthstones, looked for secret crannies in the rafters. A dozen times a night I have waked to hear a spade scratch or a lock turned. Now at last I am going to sleep. Here, magnanimous means generous. Hoard means a stock or store of money or valued objects. Crannies means a small, narrow space or opening. Rafter means a beam forming part of the internal framework of a roof. Spade means a tool with a sharp-edged metal blade. So here we can see that before Lyconides can complete his sentence, Euclid says that he has been thinking what he should do with his pot of gold. He then suddenly offers it to Lyconides and says, "Here, you take it." Lyconides is stunned by this offer and asks what Euclid means. Euclid replies that Lyconides should accept this offer of a pot of gold and that he should treat it as his daughter's dowry. Euclid further says that the pot of gold would be no use to him. Megadorus now speaks and says that Euclid's action in offering the pot of gold to Lyconides is a most generous action. Euclid says that there is nothing generous about it. He further says that he would be the happiest man in the world if this pot of gold can go where it will be do some good. Till now, he has been feeling most miserable because of this pot of gold. Day or night, he has not had a moment's peace of mind with this pot of gold in his possession. Every hour he had been thinking of some thief trying to steal it from his house, or some accident exposing the place where it had been hidden. He had tried a dozen times a day to find new hiding places for it. He had dug pits in his garden. He had pulled up the hearthstones. He had looked for secret corners in the rafters to hide this pot of gold. A dozen times at night he had got up on hearing the sound of a spade digging the ground or a key turning in a lock. He had never been able to enjoy any tranquility either during the day or during the night. Now, at last, he would be able to enjoy a sound sleep, he says. Megadorus. There speaks a wise man. Contentment, peace of mind, and sound sleep at night are worth more than a dozen pots of gold. Shall we go in, then, and celebrate the happiness of our two young people? Euclid. Yes, come in. They move towards the house. Here, contentment means a state of happiness or satisfaction. So, this is the moral of the play through the words of Megadorus. He fully endorses the views expressed by Euclid about his wealth. Megadorus says that Euclid has spoken like a wise man. Contentment, peace of mind, and sound sleep at night are worth more than a dozen pots of gold, says Megadorus. Megadorus then suggests that they should all go into Euclid's house and celebrate the happiness of Lyconides and Euclid's daughter, who would now get married. Euclid heartily agrees. Lyconides. Wait, uncle, aren't you forgetting something? Megadorus. What? Oh yes, to the audience. To all our friends here, we would gladly extend an invitation to join us, but though enough is as good as a feast, what is enough for 6 would be poor fare for 600. So let us wish you good feasting at home and ask in return your thanks. Exit. Here, feast means a large meal, typically a celebratory one. Exeunt means exit. Exeunt is a Latin word used as a stage direction in a play to indicate that a group of actors leave the stage. So we are at the end of the play. Before going into Euclid's house, Megadorus addresses the audience in the theatre and says that he would like to extend an invitation to them also to join the celebrations, but that he cannot do so because the feast has been prepared for a small number of people, while the audience consists of as many as 600 persons. He then wishes the audience to enjoy their dinner at home, and he expresses the hope that they would all feel thankful to those who have performed this play on the stage. So the ending of the pot of gold is quite ambiguous and abrupt, as the ending is conjectural and is byproduct of translator's anticipation. It becomes ambiguous and even vague to some extent. In a surprise ending, Euclio gives away the pot of gold to Lyconides as a dowry for his daughter. When Megadorus returns Euclio's pot of gold, he suggests Lyconides' marriage to Phaedria, to which Euclio readily agrees. Euclio announces that he would be happy if the money went to someone whom it could help. He realizes that possessing the pot of gold has brought him nothing but misery. He did not have a moment of peace while he had the gold. He hopes he will be able to sleep restfully now that he has given it away. Though this ending is not plausible at first, since it is not consistent with Euclio's character, we have to accept it from the various surmises made by the translators and researchers.